What's up, guys? Today I want to talk to you about something that's very dear to my heart, and that's the state of Texas. You may have heard from time to time or met someone from Texas and they had a lot of Texas pride, or they could maybe seem a little arrogant towards their state. But today I want to talk to you about why that is. For me personally, being from Texas, I feel like I can speak into that subject and tell you why a lot of Texans are that way. First off, I just want to start with some back history of the state of Texas. Did you guys know that 6 separate flags in 6 separate governments have been in Texas? Those governments being Spain, France, Mexico, Texas, the Confederate States, and America, or the United States of America. So in 1831, Texas was a part of Mexico, and the Mexican government gave the citizens of Texas in Gonzales, they gave them a cannon, and it was to help defend from the Comanches, from the Indians. They had been attacking and killing people, and there had been outbreaks, things were being stolen, and so they gave them this cannon to help protect the city. And what ended up happening within the next 4 years is Texas began to kind of revolt a little and rebel a little towards Mexico, and they started wanting their independence. So what they did is they began to start a revolution. So the leaders, the army leader, Santa Anna, his name was Santa Anna, he was the leader of the army in Mexico. He decided, we're going to go back to Gonzales and we're going to take the cannon back from them. Well, what the Texans decided to do was they said, you know what, we're going to take this cannon. They made a flag of it. They took a white flag, they sewed a cannon on it, and above it, it said, come and take it. Kind of as you can see from a shirt I'm wearing right now. So what that meaning was, they flew this flag up above the cannon. They raised the flag high for all of Mexico to see, and it was pretty much the declaration of war. And they were saying, you want the cannon? Well, you come and take it. You're going to have to fight us for it. So what ended up happening is they began to start a war. The Texans got together, and they started building an army. They started planning. They started just getting people together. They started getting America, the states, to fight with them, certain people. You guys may know one of the most famous Texans there is. He's not from Texas, but he quickly got the Texas blood in him. His name is Davy Crockett. He heard about what was going on in Texas, and he instantly came. There's a very famous quote that Davy Crockett says, and I'm going to encourage you guys to go look that up, about what he said when he came to Texas. It's very interesting, but I want you guys to look it up and see, because I want you guys to kind of look up the history of Texas yourself, because it's very interesting, if you would. So he tells everyone, I'm going to Texas. Davy Crockett goes to Texas, and he goes to one of the most famous places, of history, one of the most famous foundations that there is in all of America. He went to the Alamo. Well, what was happening at the Alamo was where the Texans had got together, and they said, we're going to defend this territory, this place in Texas, because we feel like this is the key for Texas to win the war against Mexico and gain its independence. So what happened is they got together, and the Alamo is right along the river, the Brazos River in San Antonio. And the Alamo is still there today. I encourage you guys, if you ever get a chance to come to Texas, maybe you're there in San Antonio already, go check it out, because it's one of the coolest places you'll ever see. Some of America's history is just right there, and you can see it all, where the whole battle happened. So what happened is the Texans got together and they got inside the Alamo, and there was a group of them. And Travis, I'm telling you guys, the story gets me. It gets me in my heart a little bit. So you have James Bowie, and you have William Travis, and you have Davy Crockett, one of the 3 most famous Texans there are. And William Travis, he drew a line in the sand, and he looked at everyone, all the Texans, and he said, look, if you want to fight from Texas, then I want you to step across this line. If not, you can go home now. Every single one of the Texans stepped across the line, and they said, you know what, we'll give our lives for this battle and for this cause. So what ended up happening is Mexico came together. Mexico was one of the powerhouses, one of the most strongest nations of the time, and they came with full force, with their full army, and they came to the front door of the Alamo. And the Texans and the Alamo, they just had their small group of Texans, and they said, you know what, we'll give our lives, and we're trusting that Sam Houston, arguably the famous Texan of all of Texas history, Sam Houston, he was the leader of the Texas Army, and he was a few counties away, and he was with the full Texas Army, and they're preparing to come and help the Alamo, help the Texans there to help them win the war. And the Texans and the Alamo under Davy Crockett, William Travis, James Bowie said, you know what, if we can just fight off the Mexicans, then we'll be able to wait. The rest of the Texas Army will come, and we'll be able to win this war. Well, what Santa Anna, the leader of the Mexican Army, did was he devised this plan to go in the middle of the night and to attack the Alamo. And so that's exactly what they did. They went in the middle of the night, right at dawn, and they attacked the Alamo, and they started climbing over the walls of the Alamo and killing and slaughtering everyone. And as the legend of the Alamo goes, is every single Texan had been killed except for Davy Crockett and a group of 5 Texans. And that they had surrounded these 6 men, and they said to surrender and to come over to Mexico, and that Davy Crockett looked him in the eye and said, I will give my life for Texas. And so Santa Anna did what he had to do, and he took their lives. Well, for the rest of the Texans and for Sam Houston, that was all they needed to say, we're going to win this war. And that's where the famous quote comes from, remember the Alamo. So what happens next is at the Battle of San Jacinto, it's where the Texans had chased the Mexican army, the full Texas army, underneath Sam Houston. They chased them all the way, and they won the war. They attacked the Mexicans, they captured Santa Anna, and they signed the Declaration of Independence for Texas, meaning that Texas was now its own free country, not state, country. So they had their independence, they had Santa Anna sign it over to them, and from 1836 to 1845, Texas was its own country. It was the Republic of Texas. That's why many of you may have seen this, maybe you haven't, but the Texas flag is the only flag out of every flag out of the United States of America, out of the states, that can fly at the same level as the American flag, because Texas was at one time its own country. So you can see right there with just a little bit of the history that for Texans, we can be a little prideful knowing that we were our own country and that we have had 6 different governments to come and to rule in Texas. So we just have a pride. There's a pride that comes with that. There was a time where I went to El Salvador, and I was there on vacation doing some mission stuff, and I met with some people, and they asked me, where are you from? And I told them, well, I'm from Texas. And they said, oh, there's only 3 places we know in America. That's California, New York, and Texas. But it was very interesting what their opinions were of Texas, and that was that they had this ideal, this idea that Texans still rode wagons, that they still traveled on horses, that they didn't live the same way that normal Americans do. They just thought, it's Texas, it's country, it's horses, it's gunfire. That's Texas for you. But the truth of it is, Austin, Texas, which is the capital of Texas, is considered one of the top music festivals of the world. Creativity comes out of Austin, music comes out of Austin, all these different things, just because it's just a powerhouse in music and creativity out of all of America. They have this saying in Austin called "Keep Austin Weird," and that's because they're so creative, they do things so differently than everybody else, that they want to keep it that way. They love it. But as any Texan would, we'd want to keep it that way. So anyways, I just want to go back into telling you guys just a little bit about Texas pride. That has a lot to do with it. As a Texan myself, Texas is known as the Lone Star State. And that's why if you've seen the Texas flag, it has the red and it has the blue and it has the white and it has the 1 star, being that it was a country at its own time. It defended itself, it lived for itself. It was Texas. Also, if you come to Texas, you may notice that Texans are some of the most friendliest people you ever meet. But of course, you have some Texans that don't like to have their buttons pushed, and the moment that you do, they pull out their shotgun. It's Texas. But we have a saying, Texas friendly, because everybody in Texas is friendly. They care about people, they care about their neighbors. It's not just, oh, you live next door to me or I live next door to you, but it's we live together and we're Texans. So I'd like to encourage you, if you've never been out to Texas, you need to come, you need to see it, because hey, everything's bigger in Texas.